ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is Tuesday, February 11th. Your drive begins right now on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Our text line this hour is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We're still a couple of days out from the Thundering Herd getting back at it, taking on a very tough South Alabama team. We're going to talk about that this hour. We're going to hear from you as well as we get closer to the this is the run. This is the run. I think this 4-game road trip, this determines where Marshall ends up. This is it. I know the 2 games at home are going to matter, and those will help, but I think this is the run right here. Marshall's got to take, I want to say all 4. 3 out of 4 would be good for me. All 4 is what I'm hoping for. Marshall's got to come out of this thing with a winning record. If not, the last 2 games will matter, but Marshall has an opportunity here to put itself in a position to make a serious push for the NCAA tournament. And it's based on seeding. Absolutely going to be based on seeding. And, of course, we're going to see how this thing really works. If it's going to be rest versus rust. Is it going to be team gets hot, playing multiple days? What's going to happen here? I'm excited for this, actually, believe it or not. I'm excited for a conference tournament. So we've got that coming up here in the next couple of days. We'll see where the Herd ends up. Starts off with South Alabama. So we'll break that down for you a little bit more. And, of course, we're going to hear from you. Again, our text line, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. You know, today is February 11th. I don't know if you remember what happened on this day. If you're a little older, you probably do. But if you're younger, it might not have mattered as much to you unless you are just a big Mike Tyson fan. I was a big Mike Tyson fan. Still am. Absolutely. I watched the fight against Jake Paul. Big fan of Tyson. I knew Tyson was a little bit past his prime. I think he looked good for his age, still past his prime. Had no business getting in that ring. There were some points in his career I thought, Mike, you got to give it up. You can't beat Father Time. Time always wins. But for me, one of the more shocking moments in sports history happened on this date in 1990. Buster Douglas knocked out Mike Tyson a minute and 23 seconds into the 10th round of their fight in Tokyo. It is still to this day considered to be one of the biggest upsets in sports history. Douglas was a 42-1 underdog to beat what was then the undisputed heavyweight champion in Mike Tyson. And of course, Tyson would have some stumbles rest of the way. Evander Holyfield would prove to be a mountain for Mike Tyson. There were a few others. At some point, I hate to see boxers go past their prime. I really don't know when you should just hang it up, but I see boxers just go past the expiration date so many times. You got to be smart about this. You got to, of course, be smart with your money. You got to be smart with how you manage your fights. You have to be a little Floyd Mayweather-like in how you manage your fights and the opponents you take. I said a little. I think he has mastered engineering the perfect fight for himself, always at the right time for him. But with Mike Tyson, Mike was just a beast. He was destroying people right and left. And his prime, there was no one getting it done, no one better than Mike Tyson in his prime. I would take him in his prime over anyone to this day. But in 1990, it was shocking to lose to Buster Douglas. And then Buster was short-lived because Evander Holyfield beat him. And he would go on to be a really good champion as well. And that was really when boxing was, I think, on top of the world. I was a big fan of the fight game. Still am, but I was a big fan of the boxing whole, just the aura of it. You know, because I grew up in an age that Muhammad Ali. And I grew up a little past, Ali's prime. But there was that aura of heavyweight champions like Muhammad Ali. There was, of course, you had Sugar Ray Leonard, marvelous Marvin Hagler, to name a couple. And I was really a big fan of that division. I was a big Marvin Marvelous Hagler fan. I absolutely loved him. Thought he was just one of the best. And so today, I think, is still probably to me one of the biggest upsets in the fight game with Buster Douglas. And Buster didn't really go on to, I mean, his big claim to fame is he beat Mike Tyson first. He was the one. Probably played a lot of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out to figure that out. And so he beats him. He has an okay career. It's an okay career if you look at what happened for him. So Buster Douglas, he beats Mike Tyson. At that point, and he not only beat Mike Tyson, he won the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF heavyweight titles. And so he comes into that, wins it, and he's 34-1. His only losses at that point were a fight with David Bay, and he was a heavyweight boxer. He held the USBA title. He lost to Larry Holmes. There was a draw in his career. He lost to Mike White. There's a no contest against a performer or fighter, David Starkey. I don't know too much about him. And then he lost, but he was winning a good deal of his fights. He lost to Jesse Ferguson. He lost to Tony Tucker. These are some okay names, but nothing that's remarkable. I mean, Tucker won the IBF heavyweight title in 87. He was a short-lived champion. But Buster had worked his way back up, had some good fights, got to Mike Tyson, and it was still an upset. Beats Tyson, and then his next fight on October 25th. So this fight took place on February 11th. His first defense was against Evander Holyfield, and he lost that. It was a knockout in the third round knockout. It was scheduled for 12. He loses it in the third at a minute 10. And of course, we know what kind of career Evander Holyfield had. Again, one of the all-time greats. And I would have loved to have seen, before Buster Douglas, I would have loved to have seen Tyson and Holyfield. And of course, Holyfield lost the title to Riddick Bowe, and he had a few more losses, in his resume. But that was probably the biggest moment for Holyfield, winning the title. He's got a couple wins over Mike Tyson as well, and that came a little bit after that Riddick Bowe fight, and he lost to Michael Moore and lost to Bowe again. And it just never really rang the same. When Tyson lost the title, there were some interesting years of boxing where I just don't think it was as captivating for the fight fan, for at least for people, because Tyson was the attraction, absolutely, and that's probably the biggest thing that happened on this date. Now, there are a couple other things that happened on this date. Allen Iverson scores 15 of his game-high 25 points in the fourth quarter, led his team all the way back from a 19-point deficit after three quarters in the 50th NBA All-Star game back in 2001. Big moment for him. Took place in Washington, D.C. That's where he became a star at Georgetown. So that was probably the other big item that happened today. But for me, it's Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson. Will Smith sung about it. That's how much of a cultural icon Mike Tyson was. Had his own video game, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And we all had it if we were kids. Everyone had Punch-Out. And later on, they would replace Mike Tyson and re-release Punch-Out. But, we all had Mike Tyson's Punch-Out as a kid. Our text line this hour, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Let's take a look at what's happening with the herd when we continue. And we'll hear from you on today's edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Now is the time to add on a new bathroom or remodel your old one with the latest up-to-date bathroom fixtures from Mutual Wholesalers, 710 5th Street, Huntington. Come in today to Mutual Wholesalers' beautiful showroom and see how your new bathroom will look. Check out Acre by Max. Have a new bathroom this year. Mutual Wholesalers, locally owned and operated, 710 5th Street, Huntington. Call 304-525-9118.
Hey, Tri-State, Frank's Place is where friends hang out with friends. Stop on by for happy hour from 4 to 6 p.m. and a lot of daily specials. If you're a sports fan, we have what you want. From the biggest game in professional football, NBA, NCAA basketball, and the NHL. First responders, stop by Frank's Place and check out the specials we have for you. Frank's Place, located at the River Place Plaza, next to Fratelli's. Check us out on Facebook for weekly updates and specials. Frank's Place, your home away from home.
Race to savings at Menards for products to update your home. Get a paint that combines durability with gorgeous color. Dutch Boy's Platinum Plus is a paint and primer with a protective finish that guards against scuffs, spills, and stains. And when you apply Dutch Boy with the finest painting tools from Purdy, transforming your home has never been easier. Refresh your home today with paint from Dutch Boy. Plus, view our weekly flyer on Menards.com and race to savings on great deals.
Save big money at Menards.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose. And millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50th.
Stalwart Insurance is the name for insurance in the tri-state. They are committed to delivering tailored benefit solutions with thoughtful, strategic planning with valuable professional services. Stop by or call Stalwart Insurance for your homeowner's insurance needs. Stalwart Insurance is located right beside Kenny Queen Hardware on Route 10 in Barbersville. Call Stalwart Insurance anytime at 304-552-3883. That's 304-552-3883 or visit them online at stalwartinsurance.com.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude.
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Course. Who's asking? I am. Look, you know the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids at night. Perfect. I love my job. Oak Tree?
What's up?
Still in the same place I left you last year. That's what I like. Consistency.
Well, it's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple hundred years.
I know. I love it. Turtle. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. You'd think he would have learned by now to leave the night before our meetings. Okay. Squirrel. Has anybody seen Mr. Squirrel?
The forest has been preparing just for you. Visit a forest near you today. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Miss an episode? Catch it anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to our Tuesday edition. Paul Swann, your host. Thanks for tuning in. Our text line this hour brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. We were talking a little bit about Mike Tyson earlier. Today is the anniversary of Buster Douglas shocking the world and knocking him out. Texter said, Paul, Mike Tyson was a puncher, a slugger, not a smart boxer. Got lucky with some old and weak competition. I don't know if he got lucky. He steamrolled a lot of people. Now, later in life, you couldn't do that. But he was someone that I would not, in his prime, I would not want to go toe for toe with. I would have to find a way to kind of stay away from him. Because when he did lose, he was 37-0 before he lost at the Tokyo Dome. And at that point, he was 23 years old. For a 23-year-old boxer, that's a pretty good record to get where he was. And you look at some of the big names or some of the names that he won when he was 20 years old, November 22nd, 1986. That's when he won the heavyweight title, the WBC heavyweight title. And he beat Trevor Berbick. Now, Trevor Berbick won the WBC heavyweight title in 1986. And then he lost in his first defense to Mike Tyson. And he was the last boxer to fight Muhammad Ali. Defeated him in unanimous decision 1981. So is Berbick the greatest boxer possible? No. And then you look at some of the names that Tyson fought. James Smith, Pinkleton Thomas, beat Tony Tucker, Tyrell Biggs, Larry Holmes. He beat Larry Holmes. And Larry Holmes, one of the greatest of all time, a legend, and he got beat in 4 rounds. It was ugly. And then you got Tony Tubbs up there. You got Michael Spinks. You got Frank Bruno, Carl Williams. And then Tyson loses to Buster Douglas. And then comes back in June, takes it out on Henry Tillman. And then they line up Alex Stewart, Donovan Ruddock twice, Peter McNeely, Buster Mathis Jr., Frank Bruno, Bruce Selden, and then he lost 2 in a row to Evander Holyfield. Beat Botha. And he had some strings. He had some wins and losses. But Tyson was disqualified in one of those. But he did win back the heavyweight championship. He beat Frank Bruno. He did win the heavyweight championship back, the WBC. And then he won the WBA. But then he lost to Holyfield. And after that, string of hits and misses here. Most of his losses came, most of his losses came after he was 30 years old. And of course, I don't know if I count the Jake Paul match. More like it should have been an exhibition. Should have been an exhibition. Mike Tyson was 58 years old just a few months ago in that fight, losing to Jake Paul. But I think Tyson was partially a force to be reckoned with in his prime, and there was really not an answer for him. And then as he started aging, started getting into some bad situations, and his management team changed, and things around him changed, and just the whole pressure of being celebrity, I think that's where Tyson started to fall apart. But in his prime, I take Tyson over almost anyone. Appreciate the text. That was it's good to look back, because I don't think we look at the fight game the same these days. At least I don't know how many people can really name the heavyweight champion right now. I mean, can you name the heavyweight champion without looking it up? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-825. I bet you could name maybe the wrestling champion. Who's the WWE champion? You could probably name that before you can name the boxing champion. But for a lot of people, the boxing game was Mike Tyson. 304-396-TALK is our number. Again, brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop. Thundering Herd going to be on the road facing off against South Alabama. But before the Herd will do that, coming up tonight, it's going to be Inside Marshall Basketball. We're that every Tuesday. That'll be at 7:05. You can listen to it right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. You'll also hear from the head coach of the Marshall women's team, Julie Folks. Her squad needing a win desperately right now. It's not looking good for the women. The women are in a situation where tournament time is fast approaching. Marshall could work its way out of where it's at right now in the standings. But at the same time, would maybe a one-day difference mean anything at this point? I think once you get into, if you start maybe 2 or 3 days later, I think you've got a better chance than maybe the teams that start out on day one. But the Thundering Herd right now, 7-17 overall record. Not looking good. We'll talk more about the Herd on the women's side and the men's side as well. And we will get your text in. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Texter says, Paul, I will take the great Joe Frazier from Philadelphia over the slow Mike Tyson. Are we talking Frazier in Frazier's prime versus Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson's prime? Is that what are we taking? How are we doing this? Tyson in his prime versus Joe Frazier in his prime. I'd pay to see that fight. I would have paid to see money. If you could have put Frazier versus Tyson in each other's prime, I think I'm taking that fight. Absolutely. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255 is our text line to be a part of today's show here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. My favorite is still Muhammad Ali. If you're going to ask me who my favorite fighter is of all time, it would be Muhammad Ali. But again, Muhammad Ali, I grew up with Ali sort of on the backside. Of course, he was the champion, had to go through a lot of, the best way to describe this is, of course, he was a product of the times. And so there's a lot of time in which we didn't get Muhammad Ali as the champion. And so he wasn't the champion, came back into the fight game. We lost, 3 years maybe? But he did lose to the great Joe Frazier. That was his first loss. So would you take Joe Frazier over Mike Tyson in Frazier's prime and in Tyson's prime? That's an interesting one. Because again, most of Frazier's losses came on the backside of his career, toward the end. So when I was growing up, Frazier, the name Frazier, I was more familiar with Frazier and his losses than I was with Frazier. And of course, a lot of it was George Foreman. Muhammad Ali lost to Muhammad Ali in that match for the NABF heavyweight title. All the acronyms. Now, would you take a Muhammad Ali in his prime over Mike Tyson? I might have to say yes, maybe. I think I might have to say yes on that one. We'll get more of your texts coming up, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Herds matchup coming up against South Alabama. Marshall taking on South Alabama coming up on Thursday. We're going to talk more about that when we continue on today's edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
To Staples, young man.
Tomorrow's my big day.
Big day?
First grade.
Aw, well, Staples has crayons, markers, glue.
I need a laptop.
Oh, yeah, sure. With Staples Hot Deals, you can save up to $300 on select PCs for school.
Wait. The finances are Mom's department.
Right.
I'm looking for performance, like a Core i7 processor.
Boy, first grade has really changed.
Tell me about it.
Save big on tech for school with super low Staples Hot Deals. Right now, get up to $300 off select PCs at Staples. Ends 8/24.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Dave Wilson, host of Metro News Talk Line, and you're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Clark's Pump and Shop text line is open 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Welcome back to this edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We've had some interesting dialogue so far. A few of you have texted in. We've been talking about Marshall, of course. Also on this date in history, it was Buster Douglas upsetting Mike Tyson for the championship. His first loss in Mike Tyson's career. Some of you are saying that maybe Tyson wasn't all that. Joe Frazier was thrown out there as you take him. How about George Foreman? George Foreman's name came up in the text line. They would take George Foreman and his grill over Mike Tyson. Man, the grill was great. Absolutely. George Foreman grill? Oh, yeah. George made some money there. We'll get more of your text. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. So the Thundering Herd getting set for South Alabama. That's coming up on Thursday night. We're going to have that game. It's going to tip off at 8. We'll be on the air at 7 o'clock with our pregame coverage. Herd will be in Mobile, Alabama. And both teams are tied right now in the Sun Belt for the second spot. South Alabama is good, despite the loss against Akron. And I was surprised by that. It was an 80-65 loss to Akron. South Alabama, I think that South Alabama, if that zone gives Marshall fits, South Alabama is going to have, I think, an easier time with the Herd. Because if Marshall's not on, and South Alabama is going to be a team that's going to let Marshall shoot outside. And if those shots are not going, And they were going for Akron. If those shots are not going, I think we've got a situation here where this is going to be a little tighter. But this is a team that leads the conference in points allowed per game and is 15th nationally in assist-to-turnover ratio. I don't know if Marshall, with the extra time, is going to come out a little rusty. That's my first thought. You look at where we're at here with the rest versus rust argument, and I think actually is going to play in the advantage for the Thundering Herd, to be quite honest with you on this one. Because Marshall got a little momentum, and I believe that the game against Arkansas State might have been a wake-up call for a lot of people. Now, Marshall's not favored in this one, believe it or not. The Herd's not a favorite in this game. Part of it's because the Herd's on the road. Part of it's because, of course, Marshall hasn't been able to consistently over the season win on the road. South Alabama is a really good team. South Alabama, again, scoring a little over 71 points a contest. And they're real good. They're real good defensively. They've got an active zone. They're going to cause disruptions. They're going to force turnovers. They create a lot of opportunities where they steal. And Marshall has got to be better, not forcing it. And Coach Jackson said yesterday, look, the best way to stop the zone is, get stops and get out in transition. And that's true. But Marshall has picked up the pace, especially on the offensive side. But you're going to need, I think, another strong performance from Nate Martin. Obina and Achille Killen and Nate Martin. Let's just go ahead and say it right now. Both of those two need to show up. Absolutely need to show up for this. Because I think if Martin's on, if Obina's on, that's going to feed the rest of the team a little bit better. And not only it's going to feed the rest of the team, but I think that's going to take some pressure because if Martin's a presence, and we know how physical this league can be, if Martin is a presence and if he can be a little bit more assertive, be a little bit more aggressive, be someone who can create some opportunities, but at the same time, we're going to need his defense to really shine. But Nate Martin right now is 5th in scoring on the team, averaging under 10 points. Jalen Spear has picked it up. Zane Mingo has picked it up. Michael Dawson has picked it up. Obina has been productive. But it drops off. Right after Nate Martin, it drops off. And Wyatt Fricks is averaging about 6 points a game. So if you get those top 5 to show up in this one, and I have no doubt in my mind that it's possible, and then you get some support from a Wyatt Fricks, you get a little bit more support from some of your role players out there, I could see Marshall going toe-to-toe with South Alabama. And this is a battle that really has a lot on the line. This isn't one of those games where if you lose this one, you can get the next one. Right now, Marshall's 8-4 in league play. And by virtue of beating Arkansas State, Marshall is in a 5-way tie for second. And that's how close it is right now. South Alabama in that 5-way tie with Marshall, also Troy, App State, James Madison. Old Dominion's only 2 games back. And then it drops off a little bit. Georgia Southern, Texas State, Georgia State, Southern Miss, Louisiana, 4 games back. And then UL Monroe 7 games back and Coastal's 8 games back. But there's that gap between being tied for second and then the drop-off here. So it's pretty tight. There could be maybe just a 1 or 2 game difference between if you are playing in the semifinals, you're starting in the quarterfinals, or if you're starting maybe day 2. Because right now, the one thing that I'm pretty certain of is Marshall isn't going to be a day 1 school. I don't think Marshall will drop that far. But the road is not easy. South Alabama, Louisiana, that's going to be a tough game, but I think that's winnable. And that's the thing I'm looking at right now. You could actually, if Marshall can go out, and I want to say, get 4 of these. If you can beat App State, Old Dominion, and South Alabama, those are 3 of the 5 that are in that tie right now. You can get wins over those schools. The only bad thing and the good thing here is that you're going to see on the schedule App State and Old Dominion. On the road, you're gonna see them as well, at home. And so you have an opportunity here to either create some separation, or if you drop a few, that's going to create the wrong kind of separation is probably what I'm trying to say here. And so that's where we're at right now with this team. Must-win situation. I don't want to overstate it. It's not do or die. Everyone gets in the tournament. It's not do or die. But the way this thing is shaping up right now, Marshall's a game back. Arkansas State could drop a game or two down the stretch. Southern Miss is on the schedule. Troy's on the schedule. South Alabama. But I don't know where this team falters. I think right now Arkansas State beats Troy. Arkansas State beats UL Monroe twice. Arkansas State beats Louisiana. So South Alabama is maybe the one that I think could possibly throw a monkey wrench into this, because South Alabama's already beat Arkansas State once. And this school also is reeling from a 2-game losing streak right now. Lost to Marshall and then lost at Kent State. And so MAC Sunbelt Challenge, pretty physical, pretty tough. Arkansas State could be caught, but Marshall's got to do its part, and that means beating South Alabama. That means going on the road, winning 4 straight. If you can hold serve at home, it's doable. Is it likely? That's going to be the big question here. Is it likely that Marshall can do that? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. That's our Clark's Pump and Shop text line. I mean, the key for me is go on the road. Don't let the pressure get you. Ball security is going to be even bigger. Marshall's going to have to make good decisions. I like to see Marshall get into transition. Just because South Alabama will want to let you take the 3, I don't know if you necessarily take that. Quick timeout. We continue today's edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Hey, Tri-State. Frank's Place is where friends hang out with friends. Stop on by for happy hour from 4 to 6 p.m. and a lot of daily specials. If you're a sports fan, we have what you want. From the biggest game in professional football, NBA, NCAA basketball, and the NHL. First responders, stop by Frank's Place and check out the specials we have for you. Frank's Place, located at the River Place Plaza, next to Fratelli's. Check us out on Facebook for weekly updates and specials. Frank's Place, your home away from home.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose. And millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea, and happy 50th.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude.
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Course. Who's asking? I am. Look, you know the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids at night. Perfect. I love my job. Oak Tree?
Sup?
Still in the same place I left you last year. That's what I like. Consistency.
Well, it's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple hundred years.
I know. I love it. Turtle. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. You'd think you would have learned by now to leave the night before our meetings. Okay. Squirrel. Has anybody seen Mr. Squirrel?
The forest has been preparing just for you. Visit a forest near you today. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
304-396-TALK is our text line, brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop. Welcome back. Our final segment today on The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Back to our text line. Earlier today, we were talking about Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson on this date back in 1990. Texture says, Paul, Buster Douglas got lucky, and there was no Iron Mike Tyson. Buster Douglas did get lucky. Absolutely. Mike Tyson, though, in his prime, I'm telling you, in his prime, I would take him almost every single time in his prime. And that means not the Iron Mike Tyson that later emerged, burdened with the stardom and everything else that came, and his relationship problems, his management team problems. No, I'm talking about pure just Mike Tyson, the fighter in his prime. I would take him almost over anybody when he is focused and ready to go. I mean, he might not come off as very intelligent and, comical, but you listen to him talk about the game of boxing, and he's very sharp. He has, I think, a huge, huge affinity for other fighters. His boxing IQ is up there. It might not sound like it when you hear him, but deep down inside, he has a huge love of the fight game, and of course, he has, I think, a keen eye. I just didn't like the fact that he went out there and put it on the line again against Jake Paul. And he looked good for a round, absolutely. But Mike Tyson, on this date in history, knocked out by Buster Douglas. I still can't believe that. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Texture says, the Evander Holyfield versus Tyson fight was pretty memorable. First one or the second one? I think we're talking about the one where Tyson bit his ear. I think we got to talk about that one. Tyson, I wouldn't want to get in the ring with him now. I'm not going to lie to you. I wouldn't take him now. I don't know if I could last a round with Mike Tyson. I don't know too many people that could, non-trained, I don't know too many people that could last a round with Mike Tyson. But I remember those fights. First of all, the first one was where Holyfield was the guy that beat him for the second time. And I remember that was for the WBA heavyweight title. And then Tyson was disqualified in that second one for biting. That's the one. The first one went 11, and it was a TKO. The second one was a disqualification. And then Tyson rebounded, got a win over Botha, a no contest over Norris, beat a couple of guys. Then it was a no contest with Galata, failed a drug test. Faced off against Brian Nielsen, won that, and then that's when the losing began. Lost to Lennox Lewis. At this point, when he lost to Lewis, he was 35 years old. So it's two straight to Holyfield, lost to Lewis. Then he fought one. I don't even remember that fight. And it was his last win. It was in 2003, and then he fought two more, lost, and then he retired at 38 years old. And then 20 years later, he comes out and he fights against Jake Paul. And he lost in a unanimous decision, which I still don't know if that was a fight or that was more of a exhibition. It felt like an exhibition to a degree. But Holyfield, I was a fan of Holyfield. I liked Holyfield. I think he even had his video game on the Sega Genesis, for those of you who remember. But Holyfield, he started going downhill as well, because he finished with a record of 44-10-2. And his last professional fight was May 7th, 2011. 48 years old when he hung it up. Of course, Tyson hung it up at 38 years old, came back 20 years later, which we all watched on Netflix. And I'm glad that Netflix had that fight, because it showed that Netflix wasn't ready yet for live streaming of events of that nature. And whatever they did, I think it's improved since, because they've streamed a few more things. They've got the WWE contract as well. But that fight was painful to watch. And if you grew up with Mike Tyson, you understand why it was painful to watch. Now, if you had just heard about Mike Tyson, you might not feel the pain a lot of us did. But going back to the text, that Holyfield-Tyson fight, that was a real good fight. Holyfield was a good fighter in his moments. Another guy, though, Lennox Lewis. Now, Lennox Lewis was a heck of a fighter. Toward the end of his career, I mean, he hung it up 41-2-1. He knew when to hang it up. And that was his last fight. His next to last fight was with Mike Tyson. And then his last fight was on June 21st of 2003. And that was it. That was it. And he avenged all of his losses. That's the one thing about him, is he had two losses, and he avenged them both. He lost to Oliver McCall, and then he got that one back. And he had a draw with Holyfield, then won that one, the rematch. And he lost his second fight ever to Rahman, if if I remember correctly. And then he had a rematch and won that. And then he beat Tyson after that. And then he beat Klitschko. And that was it. And we never heard from him again, it feels like. And that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in. We had some fun today. Appreciate you indulging us a little bit. Back with you tomorrow. But if you would, you can find me today on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Paul Swann. Thanks for tuning in to today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Broadcasting from the Dave & Buster's studios. Eat, drink, play, and watch at Dave & Buster's in the Huntington Mall. ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. WRBC and W231BS Huntington.